Welcome to the Ezra Digital 2020 Education Series. I would now like to turn the program over to Margot Tank for introductions.
Thank you, Mallory. I am Margot Tank, a partner at DLA Piper and the U.S. co-chair of the firm's financial services sector. I've been advising companies on digital, legal, and regulatory issues for over 20 years, including in the financial services sector. The Electronic Signature and Records Association was formed to educate and advocate for the use and acceptance of electronic signatures and electronic records in all consumer and commercial transactions. I've been counsel to Ezra since its inception and an ex officio board member. Ezra members are dedicated to providing, promoting, and participating in the Ezra values of expertise, leadership, collaboration, accessibility, and technology neutrality. As part of Ezra's educational mission, we've created this virtual 2020 education series. The education series provides insight and practical guidance on business, technology, and legal implementation issues across a wide spectrum of applications. Ezra members and their partners have presented this year on topics ranging from remote online notarization, digital mortgage, and auto finance, to the use of voice signatures and other biometric methods to authenticate signers and execute documents, and a full agenda can be found on the website. Although eSign was enacted 20 years ago, there's still a learning curve as companies continue to transform their business practices. These transformation issues are even more critical during this time of social distancing, remote work, and contactless consumer engagement. We hope you find these webinars useful. Now it's my privilege to introduce our speaker today, Todd Phillips from DDI Technology. DDI Technology is an industry-leading provider of a complete titling suite of products and services for financial institutions and automotive dealers nationwide. With DDI's suite of products and services, clients have an easy-to-use, secure, internet-based application for streaming their titling processes and improving their collateral management. Todd is DDI's Director of Sales. He is responsible for the sales of both the electronic lien and title and registration products, working with over 2,000 automobile dealers and 5,000 plus lenders nationwide. His 14 years of sales management experience, industry knowledge in the titling space allows for unique insight into the issues surrounding lien placement and portfolio management. Todd's background includes experience with both vehicle sales and commercial fleet leasing, in addition to working with large banks and credit unions. Todd, welcome to the Ezra Educational Series. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Margot. We really appreciate the opportunity to present today and hope we can bring some good insights into what is happening in the automotive space. DDI as a whole, as Margot had just said, we work with automotive lenders and dealers, providing multiple products across that entire space. DDI's vision is to be able to provide for the entire life cycle of an automotive title, whether that's with the dealer doing an initial MSO registration and titling with the state, all the way through working with insurance carriers on a total loss, and being able to provide title assistance with those transactions as well. So we do have a decent amount of experience within the automotive space, and look forward to continuing to expand our services nationwide. We do offer 4 different products, just to cover those really briefly. Premier Titling, which is for our lender customers to be able to manage their automotive portfolio. Premier EVR, which is utilized by dealers to be able to electronically register and title their vehicles with the local jurisdictions, as well as Premier TRS, which provides work for all paper processes. As you all know, and we'll cover in today's webinar, not all states have electronic processes yet. So we need to provide for that, and that's what our Premier Title and Registration Services does. And then our total loss payoff product, which allows insurance carriers and lenders to be able to quickly handle an insurance payoff and be able to release a title. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through. So just a little bit about the current state in the automotive market. Recently, Jonathan Smoke with Cox Automotive, who has a lot of products within the automotive retail space, and through experts within that field, discussed the current state. And some statistics, which will probably surprise no one, is, from a U.S. economy standpoint, we are still down about 18% from pre-COVID numbers. But that is not the case in the automotive space. We all saw a decline in early March through about mid to late April, when the economy initially started shutting down. But on a reality basis, we're up almost 8% year over year when you factor out that about 4 to 6 week period of declines in automotive sales. So this year it should hit about 14.3 million in new vehicle sales, which is significantly off from 2019 levels. But once again, when you factor in essentially the end of Q2 or middle of Q2 through Q3, sales are significantly up over those same levels, and the used vehicle index, as stated, is at 8%. Looking to 2021, sales are going to get back to a normalized sales rate. We do expect there to be continued pressure on used vehicle sales, and that has a lot to do with the lockdown. And so the lockdown not only provided additional discretionary income from U.S. citizens, as well as the government assistance programs that came through. There's a lot of pent-up demand, as well as savings that's yet to be spent in the economy. So a lot of that is expected to hit the automotive market. Rentals are up. A lot of people are choosing to drive, and some people are, starting to buy in the same way. So we'll see where that goes. But ultimately, that V-shaped recovery that we saw this summer has been great, especially for the used vehicle market, as stated. It's projected that we lost about 3.5 million vehicles worldwide due to the lockdowns and shutdowns in manufacturing. Those are not going to be replaced vehicles anytime soon. So not only will we see the higher prices on the used vehicle market that we've seen in 2020, but those are really expected to continue up to 2022 until production can meet demand and get back to normalized levels. So the 2021 outlook is really good in the automotive space, and we will continue to look for that as we go forward. So as we look at this, I want to talk a little bit about dealer specifics. We'll go through both the dealers, the lenders, and the DMVs today, and kind of talk about the impacts that they've had with COVID and the pandemic, how that's impacted them. But first, want to do a review of what the titling process really looks like for those who may not be familiar with it. As you look at the chart, it's a pretty clear flow from that buyer committing to buy the vehicle, dealer prepping the forms, which a lot of them are doing electronically now, through their DMS systems. So those DMS systems are generating those forms for signature. Those signatures are happening on electronic pads on desktops. They're happening on tablets. They're happening on phones across the broad spectrum. So that DMS system can then move in those states that offer electronic titling and registration, move to a service provider, which is DDI, and then we transmit all that data to the DMV, where they verify that data, do an MVIDIS inquiry, run it through the AMBA system, and then at that point in time, they will issue the title to the lender, whether that's electronic or a paper format, and then issue the registration and new plates to the owner. At the same time, from an electronic lien and title standpoint, if that is issued in the 25 states that are currently, that title is going to remain electronic until that owner either pays off the loan or trades it into a dealership, at which time that lender can simply release that electronic lien through a service provider system, and the DMV therefore issues the title to the owner or the dealer, depending on that scenario. So it's a pretty seamless process, especially when we're talking about e-titling. In those states that are still trying to catch up to the modern technology, it's still a labor-intensive process, but we've made really good progress so far. So, we talked a little bit about the pandemic and how that's impacted car purchases. A lot of that has to do with the way Americans are starting to travel now. In the major cities, there has, as you all know, a long time been public transportation. That is starting to change with the COVID. Individuals are buying vehicles more now in major cities because they want to feel safe. They do not want to take the public transportation. So there was a real surge, especially with the government assistance programs in May, to go and buy vehicles. And that trend continued throughout the summer and fall, and dealers were selling significantly more used vehicles if they could find them than new, because their lots had been decimated. I'm sure several of you had driven by dealership lots this summer and seen very little inventory on the lot. And that has been a pretty significant impact. So once again, and talking a little bit about the forecasting, still expecting used cars to lead, still expecting Americans to continue to buy vehicles at a higher pace, especially for those who have relied on public transportation in the past. It has also allowed for, let's just say, categorically different dealers to start to internet-based dealers really rise during this time. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Carvana. There's a lot of advertising for them out in the marketplace, and some of you may have purchased a vehicle from them. But there are others in the market that have grown significantly over the last 6 months. Vroom certainly is one of those. Shift. And then people are changing how they're buying cars, like through TrueCar, using Drive Time, which is a nationwide buy here, pay here program. And of course, Tesla continues to change how we're buying vehicles, but it really allows for a simplified buying process. A lot of times it's almost contactless delivery. They're offering a lot of competitive pricing versus the traditional dealerships, and have taken a pretty significant share away from your traditional dealerships as a whole. And it's caused the dealers to shift how they are currently selling vehicles. So to that point, that contact delivery process has grown in demand as well as volume. The online transactions a lot of times are offering the free home delivery. They're selecting the vehicle basically sight unseen from the dealer, and relying on potentially past relationships or newly developed relationships in order to build that trust over the internet to be able to buy that vehicle from them. Dealerships are offering at-home pickups for servicing and oil changes. Some of you may have participated in that this year. And certainly it is helping younger millennials and Gen Zs feel more confident in buying their vehicles, because they like the one click so they can go in and buy a vehicle and go through the entire financing process online. And that falls more in line with how they're used to generating transactions today. So it's been a benefit across the board. From the dealer standpoint, they have had to adapt. Several of their dealer management software systems have offered an electronic signature process, such as Reynolds or Reynolds. We'll cover those more in a minute. But it does allow that electronic signature, and they've had to find new solutions. So as you all are familiar, in 2000, the e-Sign Act was passed, and that has really changed how dealerships handle signatures in person and now remotely. It provides for greater accuracy, certainly helps with the customer satisfaction because they're more expedient and roll through the product assortment faster in terms of the documents they need to sign. And it's kind of solidifies their compliance. And there are certain checklists dealers have to go through to make sure they're complying with consumer protection edicts that are out there. So those dealer management systems I referred to earlier, such as CDK, Reynolds and Reynolds, AutoSoft, Dealer Socket, and Automate, they were pretty advanced in their processes for dealers previously. Reynolds has had their DocuPad product out for several years, but obviously the pandemic started to change the way dealers had to sell. And companies such as CDK had been working on several products that had been in development, and all of a sudden they had to roll those out much faster and get those out to the dealers so that they had more flexibility to service customers. So CDK Drive Flex, which is a completely cloud-based service to provide electronic signature and document prep, so that the dealer can drive out to a home and have a customer sign on their tablet and be able to manage their dealership remotely in ways they had not been able to before. Reynolds and their integrated document management actually provides an archive, electronic archive of all their documents that are signed electronically through multiple integrated partners. And then Dealer Socket last year purchased Automate for some consolidation, and their eDeal signature capture stores that electronic signature in PDF format for use by the dealers going forward. And that is archiving and compiling it into a single titling packet, which then can be printed or uploaded into service provider systems, allow for a better transmission to the DMVs. So as we continue to move forward, I think we'll see how dealer management software and systems are going to further enable dealers to compete in an internet-based marketplace. And that is going to hopefully help them transition from the traditional brick and mortar to a little bit more advanced place. Now, with regards to DMVs, I think that as we all know, sometimes technology takes a little bit longer to roll out than we want to from a state processes standpoint. But there's been some really significant advancements this year. And just want to kind of cover some of the DMVs. This is certainly not all of them who have begun to accept e-sign documents this year or have made changes in their processes to accommodate during the pandemic. As you can see, Georgia has just started accepting the e-signature documents such as secured POAs and limited POAs, title assignments. They are using a NIST level 2 standard for the e-signature. Florida is now accepting e-signatures on reassignments, odometer disclosures, and POAs. Massachusetts has made a step recently to allow for duplicate title requests to be e-signed. Ohio is doing the same thing on documents that do not require notarization. And that has been a big change for Ohio. Maybe not as big of a change as for Pennsylvania, though. Pennsylvania, as I'm sure many of you on this call know, has a very strong notary presence. And they approved just in October RON. Now they're still writing the rules in order to be able to comply with that, but the utilization of RON is going to be pretty significant, as it has been in 27 additional states who have authorized legislation, and 8 states who have issued emergency orders to authorize RON as a part of their response. So we're really starting to see better adoption. What's going to be interesting is once the pandemic response is over, what is that going to look like in terms of codification of those emergency orders to allow going forward. And then so one of the big shifts is going to be on scanning of documents versus electronic uploads to the states, and whether states will begin to accept this more in order to expedite the process. A lot of the benefits from electronic submission of documents really just comes down to faster document receipt, the issuance of titles faster to be able to justify that, and then quicker error correction. We have seen a couple of states who, once they went to remote work, were actually able to keep up with the volumes coming in, and they still have their 2-week lead times for title issuance, where other states who do not accept electronic scans of documents are actually, 8, 12 weeks out on title issuance. So there are significant benefits. I think those will continue to present themselves as we move forward, and you'll begin to see adoption of scanned and or electronic submission of documents moving forward. Minnesota is attempting that right now. Ohio is making some changes. Wisconsin is making changes. Massachusetts. So we're going to continue to see better and more adoption of that as we move forward. Just to kind of get an overview of where electronic lien and title and electronic title and registration exist in the country, this gives you a nice little overview. You can see everything in the blue represents states that have electronic titling currently. The teal color are states that are moving towards ELT. Michigan's really the next one. They're going to be launching at the end of March, followed probably fairly closely by the state of Indiana. The other states that are there are either in some form of legislation and or legislation is passed and they are updating their systems to allow for electronic titling. So we're going to continue to see advancements probably a little bit quicker in ELT than we will in ETR. So in ETR, as you can see in the teal there, or the light green, those are the states that currently have some sort of ETR program. There are a few states that have an ETR program. They don't utilize service providers such as DDI for that. A couple of examples would be Arizona and Texas, where they have built out programs for either end users or owners to use themselves and or dealers and lenders to use directly with the state. But all of the states have some form of a program currently. And then you'll see there's a few other states who are working to initiate program. Iowa and Tennessee, we hope we'll see in 2021, and potentially Colorado as well, depending on what happens. So you can see the central part of the United States is still fairly barren in terms of electronic processes, and that's both ELT and ETR. But our biggest hope is that over the next 4 to 36 months after the pandemic response is over, the realization of advancement is going to be there, and we're going to see start to enact further legislation to enable electronic title and registration, as well as ELT, and be able to update their systems to accommodate those. So we're looking forward to those opportunities down the road. With regards to lenders, what are they currently doing? So, and some of these have been around for years, but we've also seen, I think at a higher level, faster adoption over the last 6 months of some of the tools that have been available for a while. Route 1 and a lot of the captive lenders who are out in the marketplace have allowed for scanning technology for years. You didn't quite see it as often, and they have also integrated apps into their system so that F&I folks at the dealership can take a picture of a signed agreement, upload it into their system to allow and initiate faster funding. Using mobile phones and tablets on the contactless delivery allows them to immediately upload documents into the system and make that process faster. What we're really starting to see more of are third-party vendors supplying document signing processes to these lenders to expedite the process even faster, and including multi-factor authentication as they do that. It's really expediting the signature process, especially when you can send a text message, they click on a link and be able to sign their documents via that link right within the text message. That's been a nice addition, and starting to see a lot of traction from companies like Lydico through that process as well. And then remote notary processes are starting to be more adopted in states that allow that. That initial cost is borne by the lender, but when they look at the the time savings, the shipping expense, and funding the loans faster, they're starting to see significant benefits by working through the remote notary process. And as I think many on this call know, you see that more certainly in the mortgage industry and a few others, but we are starting to see that more on the automotive side as well. A couple of the newer processes that are benefiting lenders right now have to do with the payoff processes. DealerTrack has their accelerated title program, which allows a dealer to pay off a lender and receive the title a lot faster than it has in the past. This has been a good program for them so far, where they can electronically sign documents, upload them into the system, send an ACH payment to that lender, and have that lender release that title faster so that they can go ahead and get that vehicle for sale sooner and not sit on the lot, and just reduce those cycle times. IAA, our parent company, has actually created our payoff process for insurance carriers and lenders as well. So that notification is sent to the lender of a total loss electronically, and that payoff request can be submitted with the upload of supporting documentation for those lenders. Those e-signed documents can come in, and that includes a letter of guarantee for those lenders, just to provide faster funding via ACH or ETF. That just allows that release of title to the insurance carrier, reducing cycle times for the carriers, increasing customer satisfaction for the actual owner, and that way they can get a new vehicle faster and move through. So we're seeing a lot of benefits coming through the marketplace, through the processes, and expect new and better ones that continue to develop 2021 and beyond. So as we look at what the future really holds, I think we've seen a lot of glimpses this year as to what can happen. The more readily adopted procedures have grown significantly this year, especially on the dealer side. We've seen a little bit faster adoption by the DMVs, where legislatively or through executive mandates, executive orders, they've been able to do so. So where does that happen, and what further regulation and enforcement are going to ensure that dealers are being compliant with every process they have to go through, lenders are able to manage their process faster, and be able to give a higher level of service to the consumers, which consumers are certainly asking for. We believe we're going to continue to see, hopefully after the pandemic response is over, a faster adoption of electronic contracting and e-signatures for auto loans, as well as electronic lien and title expansion, electronic title and registration. I think those and shifting away from paper process, which is very heavy in manpower, being able to manage pieces of paper coming in and out, not getting lost, not getting misshipped, all those different processes, we're going to be able to see a lot better electronic process as we go through, and we'll continue to see that increase into 2025. The other benefits that are going to come through, and really a large driver of behavior, is going to be the consumers. The millennials are now well into their 30s. And have adapted to a lot of things. They're becoming very fiscally responsible, and that part is growing. But the rise of Gen Z, their desire to have one-click purchasing is really going to continue to drive the behavior of the dealers and the lenders to be able to get approvals done faster and be able to run them through the process electronically, so they can handle their automotive or their purchase electronic, going to be essential. So as they continue that approach in the marketplace, I think we're going to have to adopt the electronic signature processes, transference of documents faster, whether they're electronically signed or scanned and uploaded, and the adoption within the states, whether it's legislatively or through workflow processes, are going to continue to grow and be better enhanced as we move forward. So just a couple of thoughts, and I think as we go through this, one, certainly thank you for the opportunity to present to you today. This is a growing industry in terms of electronic processes. DDI is excited to be at the forefront of it and be able to help and move additional processes forward. But I think a lot of it is going to continue to be driven by the COVID response. A lot of the processes we had yesterday cannot be the processes we have going forward. When this happens again, both dealers, lenders, and DMVs need to be in a better position to be able to respond and show consumers how adaptable they are and can move forward to make sure business and commerce is not impeded by slower traditional paper processes that have been in place for a long time. So we'll continue to press forward with that, as well as I know Ezra will be at the forefront pushing additional legislation and moving us through the process. So we thank you for attending today.
Thank you, Todd. That was, excellent information. We'll give others an opportunity to ask some questions. For those of you who are attending today, you can submit them via the questions pane. Before we get to public policy and allow people to ask some questions, I just wanted to see your thoughts on what has been the nature of the resistance and concerns from the states. So we clearly have, consumer demand growing. We have lender acceptance. The benefits of going electronic are being recognized, both in terms of efficiency, accuracy, dollars in the door, and so on, savings, faster closing times. But so we see that, but what are the states? What have been the problems? Because that will help us try to focus Ezra's efforts too on a go-forward basis.
That's a great question. I think a lot of, it's twofold really. One, legislatively being able to change legislation within the system to allow for the acceptance of electronically signed documents, while from a national perspective, Ezra and other organizations have made significant advancements. The individual states have been very slow to adopt. The verification of signature and that sort of thing in some states has prohibited the acceptance of those without moving to an online notary process or something like that. So I think, moving more and educating state legislatures of the benefits of electronic signature and how it can make them more efficient from a state standpoint, I think is a key initiative that needs to be out there. The other side of it, quite honestly, is funding within the local DMVs, BMVs out there for them to be able to upgrade their systems in order to accept the ELT process, ETR, to be able to scan and warehouse the volume of documents that they do electronically. A lot of the states just don't have that built out. So they're waiting on funding from their legislatures to be able to see the benefits of that in order to be able to build out the capabilities to handle it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So signature verification and in a remote environment, or just, I don't mean remote that we're all working from home, but not on premises, ID presentation, the trust for government is difficult. But with Ron, with notaries, whether it's a notarial act or not, but having that entire kind of witnessed, recorded KBA credential process might really be helpful to move this process forward. So that's that's great news. Okay, so
Completely
I'll just
agree.
quickly, oh, sorry, go ahead, Todd.
Oh, no, I just said completely agree. Yeah.
Okay. Exciting times. So just quickly, some of the public policy initiatives that Ezra has been involved in, electronic will legislation. We're supporting the activity at the state level to enact specific laws because wills and testamentary trusts and certain other estate planning documents are excluded from e-sign and the UETA, so there needs to be a state effort. We're working on that. Acceptance of e-signed IRS forms, that has been an ongoing effort over the last 15 years or so, and Ezra's had a lot of success in working with the IRS, whether it's 4506Ts or other forms that are important for many of the transactions that we talked about today. Blockchain support for uniform technology neutral legislation. Ezra has taken the position that e-sign and the UETA enable all types of smart contracts or transactions conducted in the blockchain. However, there are states that are now enacting specific laws, and Ezra's position is to support as long as those laws are technology neutral. RON, big topic. We're supporting RON adoption, and we're hopeful that RON adoption, both in the laws as well as the regulations, will become more uniform over time. So we're working on that. In addition, Federal Reserve banks and Federal Home Loan banks, we've supported education efforts there to ensure that e-notes can be accepted as collateral. Obviously, a lot of what Todd talked about today, DDI has been extremely active with Ezra and in the area of vehicle titling, DMV, and anything auto. So thank you to TDI for your efforts there, and Ezra is behind you. And also with respect to the odometer acceptance. So these are just some of the public policy initiatives in this past year, but we'll have a lot more in 2021. So I'm going to turn it back to Mallory, because I can see that we have some additional questions.
Right, great. Well, thanks, Margot, and thank you, Todd. We do have a question. You spoke mainly about franchise dealerships today, and I was just curious how independent or small used car dealerships have been dealing with all the recent changes. And then a follow-up to that is, do the smaller independent dealers have access to e-signatures and contactless technology?
Yeah, that's a great question. We, unfortunately, most of that answer is no. The franchise dealers, just due to the nature of their business, spend more money on technology and electronic processes through their dealerships. Most of the dealer management system companies out there, like we mentioned, Reynolds, CDK, and those, they cater to the franchise market. A lot of the DMS systems that are available to independent dealers are smaller in nature, are ones that cost is extremely important to independent dealers. So you've seen a lot less development efforts in that. But I do know that there are a couple of DMS systems who are working on the process to make it easy and friendly to build in the electronic signature process through their systems in such a way that it will not cost independent dealers too much money to use them. And I think that's been the biggest hindrance for the independents, is just the cost. So as the pressure mounts, I guess, once again, post-pandemic response, there's a lot of feedback about how can I do this and how can I make this more efficient for my ship. We're starting to see some notice from Wayne Reeves and a few other systems out there to provide better and more services to those independent dealers and to make the transactions easier for their consumers as well.
Great, well, thank you for that. The next question is, how many states accept e-odometer?
Oh, you're going to put me on a spot. I do not know the answer to that question. But I will absolutely, Mallory, work with you to get the answer to that question and follow up after this webinar.
Awesome. All right, well, I can definitely help you arrange that. That is the last of our questions, so I will turn it back over to you, Margot.
Thank you. You can find out more about Ezra and the series on Ezra's website at www.esignrecords.org. Of course, we hope that you would consider joining Ezra and as we go into 2021, where you'll be able to gain the benefit of the combined expertise of our members and also support our advocating for digital economy for all. Please see the membership section of our website. Again, if you have any questions about the series, if you'd like to participate in the education series, join Ezra, or otherwise, please feel free to reach out to either myself or Steve Bisbee. We are the co-chairs of this education series. On behalf of Ezra and our speakers, thank you very much for joining us today. Again, Todd, excellent presentation and really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.